There is a country right now that did everything it was told. It opened its markets, it took the loans, it built the roads, it followed the rules written by institutions in Washington and Geneva and London. And after 30 years of doing everything right, its people are still poor. Not slightly behind, generationally trapped. And if you think that is because they did not try hard enough, this video is going to make you very uncomfortable. Because the system that poor countries are asked to follow was not designed to make them rich. It was designed to keep the global economy running, and those are two very different things. Let me show you how. Imagine you are a small country. You have land, you have people, you have raw materials, copper, cobalt, coffee, cocoa, things the world desperately needs. So you start exporting. You sell your copper to richer countries. They take your copper and turn it into wires, electronics, batteries, and technology. Then they sell those finished products back to you at 50 times the price. You sold the raw ingredient for pennies. They sold the finished meal for hundreds. This is not a metaphor. This is the actual structure of global trade for most developing nations. They export cheap raw materials and import expensive finished goods. The money flows out, the value stays somewhere else. And this has been happening for decades. But here is where it gets worse. You would think the obvious solution is to stop exporting raw materials and start manufacturing your own products. Build factories, add value, sell finished goods instead. Logical, right? Except when poor countries try to do exactly that, they run into a wall that almost nobody talks about. Rich countries and international trade agreements have built a system of tariffs and regulations that make it easy to export raw materials but extremely expensive to export finished goods. If you sell raw cocoa beans to Europe, the tariff is close to zero. If you try to sell chocolate made from those same beans, the tariff jumps dramatically. The system literally punishes you for trying to move up. You are allowed to dig. You are not allowed to build. And this is not ancient history. These trade structures exist right now, today, while people debate why poor countries cannot seem to develop. But trade is only one lock on the cage. The second one is debt. When poor countries need money to build infrastructure, schools, hospitals, and roads, they borrow from international institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. These loans come with conditions, strict conditions. Cut public spending, privatize state industries, open your markets to foreign competition, remove subsidies for your own farmers and manufacturers. On paper, these sound like responsible reforms. In practice, they often destroy the very industries a developing country needs to grow. Local farmers cannot compete with subsidized agricultural imports from rich nations. Local manufacturers cannot compete with multinational corporations that have been operating for a century. The loans were supposed to help, but the conditions attached to them often dismantle the very foundation the country was trying to build. And here's the math that should make you angry. Many of the poorest countries in Africa spend more money every year on debt repayment than they spend on healthcare and education combined. They're paying interest on loans taken decades ago, sometimes by governments that no longer even exist, while their children sit in classrooms without books. The money flows north, the debt stays south. And even when a country manages to grow despite all of this, there is a third trap waiting: currency. Most international trade is conducted in US dollars. Poor countries must earn dollars to buy essential imports like fuel, medicine, and technology, but their own currencies are weak. So every time the US Federal Reserve raises interest rates or the dollar strengthens, the cost of everything these countries need to import goes up instantly. Not because they did anything wrong, because a decision was made in Washington that had nothing to do with them. Their economy can be growing, their government can be stable, their policies can be sound, and one monetary policy shift on the other side of the planet can erase years of progress overnight. They are playing a game where someone else controls the rules, the referee, and the scoreboard. Now zoom out and look at the full picture. A poor country exports raw materials at low prices because the trade system is designed that way. It borrows money to develop, but the loan conditions weaken its domestic economy. It earns in a weak local currency, but must pay for imports in strong dollars it doesn't control. And any progress it makes can be reversed by decisions made in capitals thousands of miles away by people who will never know its name. This is not failure. This is architecture. And the most painful irony of all is that the countries giving the advice are the same countries that never followed it themselves. The United States industrialized behind massive tariffs and protectionist policies for over a century before it started preaching free trade. Britain did the same. South Korea did the same. China is doing it right now. Every wealthy nation in history protected its own industries first and opened its markets second, after it was strong enough to compete. But when poor countries try the same strategy, they are told it's irresponsible. They are told to open up, liberalize, trust the market. The ladder that every rich country climbed is being pulled up behind them. So the next time someone asks why poor countries are still poor, understand that the answer is not laziness. It is not corruption alone, though corruption certainly exists. It is not a lack of resources or effort or ambition. It is a global system that extracts more than it invests, that lends with one hand and takes with the other, that writes rules for others it never followed itself. And the hardest question is not why are they still poor, it is who benefits from them staying that way. Because someone always does.